Welcome everyone to another episode of Delta Dialogues, your monthly call for the integrated photonics community. My name is Jorn Smeets and I'll be your host today. Last episode of Delta Dialogues was about the PITC, the Photonics Integration Technology Center. And we were discussing with various stakeholders on what the PITC does, what the various programs are, and who needs to participate. Now, after the summer holiday, we're starting with a new episode which will be all about the PIC Summit. The PIC Summit Europe 2023, which is taking place in 2 months here in Eindhoven at the Evoluon. In today's program, we'll have 3 speakers for you lined up. First one is Twan Korthorst, Group Director of Photonics Solutions at Synopsis. The second speaker is Peter van Arkel. Peter is the Road Mapping Director of the IPSR International at Berenschot. And the third but not last speaker is William Stevens. William Stevens is the co-founder and managing director of the Tech Tour Group. So let me start first with telling you a bit more about the PIC Summit before we dive into the program. So the PIC Summit Europe is an international flagship event that brings together the various stakeholders to further accelerate the integrated photonics industry. You can expect academia, end users, industry, semicon, but also investors and policymakers to all join in and have a discussion on what is needed to further accelerate the industry. What are the challenges, what are the bottlenecks, and how can we overcome those together? The theme of the PIC Summit Europe is about how PICs can enable Europe to create the next tech giants. A very ambitious goal. So if you're interested to join the PIC Summit Europe, you can do so by going to www.picsummiteurope.com, and you still have 1 week left to secure your early bird ticket. So how are we going about with this PIC Summit Europe? How are we enabling this cross-fertilization and to achieve these ambitions that we expressed today? So the PIC Summit Europe starts with a plenary program on the 7th of November, which is a Tuesday, where you can expect speakers like the CTO of IMEC. We have the general managers of TSMC EMEA. We have a fireside chat with a venture capitalist and the CEO of InvestNL. But then in the afternoon, after a nice networking lunch, we'll have a breakout program where we separate 3 different categories. We'll have one about technology. So here you can expect really hardcore technology stuff on chip design, on heterogeneous integration. So in forms of presentations, but also in panel discussions where interaction is stimulated with the audience. The second category is about business. So here you can expect to hear on investment readiness, on business model, on vertical or horizontal integration of companies, and so on and so forth. The last category of the breakout program is on applications. So here we're trying to understand from the markets, what are the requirements, what are the developments of the PIC technology within their domains. Another interesting thing is that on the second day of the PIC Summit, so the 8th of November, we'll actually have some side events taking place. The first side event, and who is also someone is going to speak to you about today, is the Tech Tour Photonics. This is an event specifically targeted at investors and startups that are looking for investments. Another side event that's taking place is actually the IPSR International. This international roadmap brings together also end users, academia, PIC companies and semiconductor companies to work on the roadmap. So align the requirements of the market with the roadmaps of the people that make the technology. Let's start the show. All right. Welcome, Twan, in the studio here. Well, actually through a virtual connection on the Teams, but very glad that you want to join us on this Delta Dialogues episode today. Just for our viewers, I think most of them are already familiar with you, your face. Twan Korthorst, you are the Group Director of Photonics Solutions at Synopsis. And Synopsis is a strategic partner of Photon Delta. Maybe, Twan, you can give a quick introduction on what you guys do at Synopsis and how you work with Photon Delta.
All right, thanks for the introduction and for having me on your Delta Dialogues session today. And yes, like you said, my role at Synopsis is that I'm overseeing all our photonic integrated circuit activities. But Synopsis is probably even more renowned for our electronic design automation tools, for our semiconductor IP, and for our software security activities. But already for a couple of years, we also have been investing and developing a solution to design photonic integrated circuits. And mainly what keeps me busy today is how to connect the photonics world with the electronic side of our customer base, but also internally when it comes to complete design solutions.
Okay, very good. And I think that's a very nice topic that we'll come back to later as well. Something I also wanted to mention is that Synopsis is also a strategic partner of the PIC Summit, of the event that we're discussing today. So thank you very much for your support there, Twan. So just to give a bit of context, right? The goal of the PIC Summit is to bring together various stakeholders that are needed to further accelerate the PIC industry, so the photonic chip industry. And so we're planning on having people from industry, academia, end users. We'll have investors there, public officials, and to really work on those topics that are most relevant, that we need to, overcome the challenges in order to further accelerate. One of the, let's say, important things that we try to do is to bring together the photonics and the electronics industry. You just mentioned already something on how Synopsis is doing that. Why do you think that's so important?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And when we were still Phoenix Software, before we got acquired by Synopsis, we already started to see that more or less every photonic chip or photonic device is part of a bigger system. And we have been giving presentations as ecosystem. Photons will replace electrons, and photonics is the future. And I still very much believe photons will replace electrons, but photonics will not replace electronics. Mm-hmm. So what I see and what we see at Synopsis is that more and more traditional electrical IC design and manufacturing organizations start to tap into photonics. And on the other side, we see our photonics customer base starting to develop, let's say, real products. And those real products, not just prototypes, not just R&D activities, require the electronics to drive, to control, to read out the photonic circuits, whether this is for sensing, for data communication. So really what we see happening, both with our photonic view on the industry as well as our electrical or electronic view, is that those worlds are getting closer and closer together. And this is also why Synopsis decided to acquire Phoenix Software, to acquire Arkel Design Group, to build solutions that are really bringing the electronics and photonics worlds together.
Yeah, and that will then enable also chip designers to make use of those functionalities, right? So that they are in a position where they can pick and in the PDK also photonics and combine that with their electronics functionalities on the circuit.
Yes, and again, and mainly, and we've been talking about this in the past, moving from the lab to the fab, moving from R&D to real products, that also drives that the teams grow bigger, that instead of a few photonic experts doing something in the corner of a bigger organization, it starts to become more mainstream. And again, then you really see that at those touch points between the various disciplines, there's way more interaction between the electronics and photonics folks. So that also makes me excited actually to see how this will further develop. And I think it's really important to connect, let's say, as photonics community with the traditional semiconductor community and learn from the semiconductor industry, but also educate them on why photonics is different, why photonics has certain, let's say, added values to their, let's say, problem solving today. So yeah, really great era, I think, to be in.
Yeah.
to be honest.
Very, very exciting times indeed, and I think there is definitely a lot of added value that we can bring to their existing portfolios that they can then use to address new applications, new markets, right? So there is a big opportunity, and that's also what we see with the PIC Summit. I mean, the trend of the interest, the growing interest also from traditional semicon players within the PIC area, as you said, is growing. And we can see that in the PIC Summit by looking at the speakers, right? So where maybe last year we had more speakers from the photonics side, we can see really an increase in semicon speakers. So just to name a few, we have Paul de Bot, General Manager TSMC for EMEA region. We have Clara Otero, who is the Senior Director of System Innovations NXP. We have XFab. We have Ilan Spillinger he's the CTO of IMAC. I mean, that's already showing that there is quite an interest of speaking as a semicon industrial player to speak at a PIC event. Which of those speakers triggers your interest the most, Twan?
Yeah, interesting. And I was actually going back in my mind about the edition that you organized last year, where you already had, I think, Henning Liesdahl, VP Silicon Photonics Architecture from NVIDIA, where most of us, again, if I say us from the photonics side, are aware of NVIDIA with their high-speed InfiniBand electrical connections and their desire to disrupt some of this. So I think that was already a great example of a more traditional semiconductor company that really was front and center talking about photonics and the importance of it. So when then I look at some of the names you just mentioned, we all know IMEC, of course, as a key institute for pre-competitive collaborative research in the semiconductor space. But also IMEC has been active in photonics for quite some time. So in that way, I'm really interested to learn from NXP, for instance, where so far they have been observing, in my opinion, about, something is happening, and the tradition in Philips and the tradition with the local Eindhoven region, perhaps, and you now see that they start to pay more interest to what is photonics and how photonics can really help delivering added value for their customers. So that I'm really looking forward to, because I see them as a real traditional semiconductor electronics only organization that now starts to show interest in this space. So I'm looking forward to learn, let's say, about their roadmap or plans, or maybe advices for us again on the photonics side of the industry.
Yeah, indeed. No, exciting times. I'm also very interested to hear their story, especially taking into account that, just a month ago, I think it was announced they participated in the investment of Smart Photonics. So that's also, another let's say, development that really shows their interest in the photonics industry. So a great milestone. Listen, Twan, so you're also actually one of the speakers at the PIC Summit. I didn't mention your name in this list, but you are, and we're very happy to have you there, of course. Could you maybe tell us a bit about what you're going to talk about at the PIC Summit? What's your presentation about?
Yeah. So for me, these meetings like the PIC Summit Europe and especially also combined with the IPSR roadmap activities, what I always like to achieve when participating, when presenting, when in a panel, whatever, is a dialogue. I think when we have such great people together with different backgrounds from different parts of the world, with different views, it's very important to, on one hand, address a certain topic. And my session, or I'll talk about electronics, photonics, co-design, co-manufacturing. But not only sending what I think or what I observe, but also trying to collect feedback and input. Because I think it's in the phase where we're now with photonics, it's very important to learn from each other, work together, and address a kind of the critical topics. So my intent is that I'll share, let's say, what I've been learning the last 12, 18 months, about this desire to bring electronics and photonics together, closer together, but also solicit feedback and input from the audience to really kind of prioritize the high value problems that we face as an industry.
Yeah. That's good. I think that's exactly what we're trying to achieve at the PIC Summit, to create a dialogue, right? So either in the sessions or on one of the various networking opportunities that we facilitate. There's a couple of dinners, there's the networking lunches, there's the coffee breaks on the exhibition floor, where there's numerous organizations that are exhibiting there. But of course, to get talking and to get to know what's going on in your field, what are the recent updates, and how can we help each other. Maybe to come to my last question, you're saying you want to create this dialogue. Who do you want to create this dialogue with? Like, who do you think should come to the PIC Summit and to contribute here?
Yeah, and so being a bit selfish now, let's say the main business for Synopsis at this moment in this space is selling design tools. Mm-hmm. And I'm always looking for designers, the design community, to listen, but also to chip in and provide feedback. So people that are really designing photonic integrated circuits or systems with photonic integrated circuits, I would really like to see, let's say, in volume attending the PIC Summit. Also, on the other side, all these nice designs need to be manufactured. So how do we get people from foundries to join us? And then really not only the photonic foundries, you already mentioned Smart Photonics, and in the Netherlands we of course have also Lyonics, and we have then we have Cialetti and IMEC as institutes. We have XFAB, you mentioned LiCienTech, but can we get also traditional semiconductor foundries to send a few people to join us in that conversation and discussion? Because in the end, the whole ecosystem, the whole design flow, manufacturing flow, test, assembly, packaging needs to be coming together to really accelerate the adoption of photonics technologies. So designers, people from fabs would be great. And those designers then represent also the various applications, preferably.
Yes. All right. So I think we're going to have a lot of visitors that will fit in this profile. So I think you're going to be happy with the audience you're going to meet there, Twan. And also, the dialogues that will be created during the IPSR-I sessions are also, I think, going to be of great value. I would like to thank you very much for your time today, Twan, and thank you for your contribution to the Delta Dialogues. And we look very much forward to having you at the PIC Summit and to your presentation about the co-design of the chips. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for today, and see you soon.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. All right, we welcome live in the studio Peter van Arkel. He is the road mapping director for the IPSR-I at Berenschot. Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Be here.
Great to have you. So, Peter, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the IPSR-I meetings taking place at the PIC Summit. But maybe before we do, can you tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do for the IPSR-I?
Yeah, so I'm Peter van Arkel, the road mapping director of the IPSR-I. I've been doing this for 6, almost 7 years now. I think from the beginning. The IPSR-I is an initiative of MIT Microphotonics Center and Photon Delta together. And from that perspective, I organize the roadmap structure. So how do the chapters look? I organize all the workshops, so getting all the discussions going where we develop the roadmap. Organize the validation sessions, so we know everything is well in order and ready to publish. And a big task I do is coordinating the working group leaders, because we have over 27 working group leaders working on the roadmap, guiding the different working groups. And they do all the writing, and I do all the coordination between them.
Right, wonderful. 27. That's quite a lot of work group leaders that you need to coordinate. I can imagine that must be challenging at times.
It is. They are all very busy, and they're putting their time into the roadmap on a voluntary basis usually. And that's
Yeah.
well, very good to do, but also very challenging indeed.
Yeah, I imagine. Hey, Peter, so you mentioned about, okay, so the roadmap is an initiative from MIT and Photon Delta. Maybe can you tell us a bit more about, okay, what is the goal of this roadmap and what does it do? What does it try to do?
Yeah, so the main goal of the IPSI is to progress manufacturing of integrated photonic circuits. That's the main goal, and we do this by a trust-based community. Over 400 experts contribute to the roadmap and participate in the discussions and write stuff and validate all the input that we have. And we do this also. The participants are split over about 25%. So it's a 25, 25, 25, 25% split between small and medium enterprises representatives, large enterprises, universities, and research institutes. And together they work on setting the timeline for the roadmap in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years in the future. So where does the technology need to stand, and which parts of technology needs to be developed, or where are the gaps in technology development? So we can align R&D more efficiently, so we know in the end we have a full supply chain and all building blocks and equipment ready to actually deliver on the promises.
Right, so really connecting, let's say, the markets, the applications. So what does the customer want or need? What could they need in the future? And aligning those roadmaps with the people that are actually inventing these PICs or producing these PICs. That's it's a very important activity, of course, and I'm glad you guys are doing a great job at Berenschot to coordinate this. Maybe so we had a couple. So the working groups, they meet on a regular basis, and then I think twice per year there is a physical meeting where they all come together. Right. The last one was the spring meeting in Cambridge at the MIT campus in the United States, and the one before that was at the previous PIC Summit in Eindhoven. Could you explain to us a little bit what happens at these physical meetings and what's the difference between the Eindhoven version, which is in the autumn, and the Cambridge version, which is in spring?
Yes, of course. So to explain that, I have to go a bit to the road mapping structure. So there are 3 types of chapters we maintain. One is describing the applications. So what is the customer need? And what do we expect they will need in the future from integrated photonics? Then we have the module level. So you can imagine for modules that's based on the photonic function. That's RF photonics, that's interconnect or wired communication, 3D imaging, spectral and refractive index sensing. And the last one we have in the roadmap updated this year is signal processing, optical signal processing. Those are the module levels. And this module is a bit of the connection between what does the market want from a functional perspective, from the application view, and what technologies can deliver this module. What technologies do you need to develop to combine this module that will have this photonic function? And then, as the final one, I already give an insight in it, of course, are the technology chapters. So that's packaging, that's assembly, testing, all the front-end platforms that go into manufacturing integrated photonics. And those are the 3 chapters, or the 3 chapter types that we have: applications, modules, and technologies. Now going back to your question on, okay, what do we do then at these meetings? So 1.5 years ago at the PIC Summit Europe, we started looking at the applications. Okay, what is it that the user base requires for integrated photonics in the next 20 years? Looking in their crystal balls, and we had some speakers from different application areas, and translating those to, okay, now we know what the market wants, but what does this mean then for the modules? So for example, if we talk about 3D imaging, okay, we know now that aerospace is interested in 3D imaging, and the automotive industry and also agri-food is interested in 3D imaging, for example. Okay, from there we know what the requirements are, and we translated that to what does this then mean for a LiDAR module or a 3D imaging module? What photonic functionality does it need? That was 1.5 years ago at PIC Summit Europe. Then we had the meeting in Cambridge, and there we translated this to, okay, now and the working groups in between, by the way, started working on this challenge. So they got the input from the market, and they started translating it, writing it down. Okay, what does this then mean for the module level? And they started writing their chapters. From these modules, they made the translation at the Cambridge meeting. Okay, we now know what modules we need, how can we develop this with the different technologies? So we had an interactive discussion between the module working groups and the technologies. So for 3D imaging, to take it as an example again, okay, what type of front-end challenges do we get, right? Do we need to shrink it more? What is the cost point? One main challenge is also the integration level on the packaging. How are you going to co-package the different functionalities that go into a module? And that's what we did last meeting. And now in the next meeting, that PIC Summit Europe will focus on the consistency between the different technologies. So they all thought of their solutions and their requirements for the future in the next 20 years. But now are these technologies are aligned, right? So if we develop something on the front-end platform, can packaging actually package it? Or can it be assembled? Or that type of challenges will be one of the main points of discussion.
All right. Well, that's and I think that's going to be interesting because that will also attract a certain, let's say, audience to of course to these working group meetings, to these sessions that you're organizing, but also to visit the PIC Summit then, right? Because if I'm correct, the PIC Summit starts on the 7th of November, which is a Tuesday, and that will be the plenary program, and then the IPSR-I sessions start the day after. So people are very welcome to join both the PIC Summit and the IPSR-I working sessions. But for the IPSR-I working sessions, it is really required to contribute. Right? You cannot just sit there in one of those working groups meetings and listen in, or it's required to make some contributions. Am I correct?
That is correct. So in the morning we have a plenary program where we have some presenters from different fields presenting their vision on the future of integrated photonics. There you can sit and listen. But from the afternoon on, we start with the in-depth discussions on these technology consistencies, so making sure that all technology chapters are aligned. But we also have discussions, presentations, maybe to start with, of all the technology chapters that have been writing based on the previous meeting that we had, their chapters, and presenting the highlights, so their technology roadmap, so everybody is up to speed on what happened in the last half year in these working groups. The same goes for the applications. We have some presentations. And then in the end, we're also going to discuss some big technology challenges that we have that don't fit within one of the technology chapters itself. So you can imagine, for example, heterogeneous integration, photonic electronic co-packaging might be one of these topics to discuss. And we also reserve time for this to really focus on specific technology challenges. So if any of your audience has an idea on challenges that we really should discuss, we are open for discussion. So you can send me a message either on LinkedIn or via email or via WhatsApp with some suggestions for these challenges, and we can take them with us in the preparation of the meeting.
All right, that sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Also, just for the people that are not part of the IPSR-I yet and would like to become part of the IPSR-I, I guess they can get in touch with you. But for them to have an idea on how technical are these sessions that are taking place during the PIC Summit, do you have any? Can you give us an idea on that? Yeah.
So the discussions will be very technical based. So it's really going into depth on the technology. We are sitting there with the experts from around the globe, from different companies and organizational institutes and universities, to have an in-depth discussion of where the technology needs to stand, and really figuring out what technologies are needed. So there's a high level of technical content.
Yeah. All right. So that's also just to set the expectations right for people to join, right? And then maybe coming to my last question. Who are you looking for to join? Who should come to the IPSR-I sessions? Who do you want to ask to come?
Yeah, well, we are looking for all experts around the globe that have knowledge either of the user requirements of integrated photonics, but also people developing technologies or researchers and universities, research institutes, but also startups, small, medium enterprises, large enterprises, everybody who's developing integrated photonics and is willing to share some of their knowledge by contributing to the roadmap. And what you get in return is access to this field of experts. In total, we have 400, and usually we see that about 100 to 150 attend the IPSR-I discussion meetings. And you can co-develop with them the newest insights in integrated photonics and where the future, in our best estimate from these experts, will lead. So you're really catching up with everybody and developing the front end of knowledge of where integrated photonics will be. And you have also a chance to give some input to the roadmap and contribute to this future vision that we have.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And also maybe something worth mentioning is also the community vibe that usually is there at these meetings, right? So people really like to catch up with each other in an informal way. There's always a nice dinner with the different working groups all together. And I think that's also catching up with your peers, meeting other people from your field to share ideas, to share thoughts. I think that's really what makes this unique. So great job on organizing this, Peter. And thank you very much for having this discussion with us today about PIC Summit, about the IPSR-I. We are going to move on to our next speaker. So thank you very much, and I'll see you, in November.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll see you in November.
All right, thanks, Peter. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we welcome into the call William Stevens. William is the co-founder and group managing director of the Tech Tour. William, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Jorn. I'm dialing in here from Geneva Airport, so on the way as usual, like you, traveling a lot. But yeah, I hear you very well, loud and clear.
All right, great to hear. Well, thanks for calling in, even while you're traveling. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, so always on the move as usual. William, I wanted to start off with a question on Tech Tour, because I think a lot of the viewers today, maybe they're not familiar with Tech Tour. Can you briefly explain what you guys do?
We all know that, so what is the mission, or what is the challenge or the pain we're trying to solve? We all know that there are great tech entrepreneurs in Europe. The reality is that they raise about a quarter of US entrepreneurs. And we see that also, by the way, in photonics. So what we're trying to do is make Europe a smaller place for high-tech entrepreneurs by bringing the relevant, most active investors together for these entrepreneurs. So that's what Tech Tour is doing. This year, last year, we have been helping 1,000 entrepreneurs, about 30 to 40, 50 in photonics, depending a bit on our capacity and the interest from the investors and the entrepreneurs. The key thing about Tech Tour is that it works with the most active investors who actually select the companies, in most of the cases also nominated companies. So we are pan-European, and we try to make Europe a smaller place for tech entrepreneurs raising money.
All right, understand. That's a noble cause, I think, and also very relevant, as you mentioned. We only get a quarter, or 15% of the investments compared to the United States, and that's also very relevant for the photonics industry. I think, especially when it comes to the integrated photonics and photonic chip industry, we see it as it's a fast emerging deep tech sector, which is characterized by long and deep valleys of death, right? So very capital intensive and require a lot of investments. That's also why Photon Delta in the previous years we've been investing a lot ourselves, our own funds into scale-ups and startups. And we also try to mobilize other investors to join the movement, and that's also maybe a little bit of context on the PIC Summit. Is what we're trying to do is really also get these investors involved in the industry. So really try to bring them to come to Eindhoven on the 7th and the 8th of November, and I guess that's also where Tech Tour comes into play. Maybe can you tell us a bit more about how you're contributing to this during the PIC Summit, William?
So first of all, congrats to Photon Delta about the second edition of the PIC Summit. Photonics Integrated Circuits is, of course, like the summit where entrepreneurs want to go to, corporates want to go to. It's really revolutionizing technology and could really deliver a lot of new solutions that the market needs. Tech Tour has been organizing the Tech Tour Photonics in collaboration with Photon Hub Europe, with EPIC, and of course with Photon Delta for many years. I think it will be now the 8th or the 9th edition, and it's going to be the 3rd edition in Eindhoven. At initial editions, so last year it was also in Eindhoven, but we did one in 2016 when Smart Photonics was about to start, Photon Delta was about to start, and we are very honored to have made a small contribution, humble contribution, of course, to these two great initiatives. We also had Effect Photonics. So we hope this year, once again, to bring the most active investors to nominate, select the right companies. Usually it's actually 80% new companies that we bring. And as usual, I mean, our goal is that 3/4 of the companies raise money. So, that's a pretty good rate. We do not claim that all of this money is raised thanks to us, but the visibility, credibility, the contacts directly, indirectly generated, of course, help a lot. And what we also see from the statistics, this is, general tech tour statistics over the last 7 years, is that 78% of the money that the companies raise is after a tech tour presentation. So we try to meet those companies at the right time, or the investors are meeting the companies at the right time. It takes half a year, typically, or a year, or sometimes even more, to raise funding. And as you said on deep tech, which photonics really is, it's a long investment cycle. You need to raise different rounds. So we see great companies coming back, and then, of course, raising more bigger rounds of funding, which is, of course, when they are doing well, the appetite for capital is significant. So that's how we hope to contribute. And we think, of course, photonics integrated circuits, as I said, is really a big new context, and we are honored and delighted to do this, therefore, once again at the PIC Summit.
Yep. All right. Well, of course, that's I think a very important thing, is to bring together these investors and these startups, right? And have these investors select the startups they wanna see. Do you have any numbers for the people at home or in the office listening to this? How many startups can they expect? How many investors are coming usually to these events?
So first of all, we try to get at least as many investors actively working on nominating and selecting companies. So we will have around 40 investors attending the summit, as well as the Director of Photonics, and they will select 40 companies as well. So we have reserved 10 companies only from the Netherlands, or actually validated by Photon Delta, as we want to have investors having a really sneak peek into the best of the ecosystem in the Netherlands. And the other 30 are really the best from the rest of Europe, which could, of course, include the Netherlands as well. On top of that, we have coaches, experts, but we're all about bringing the most active investors with the most promising companies together. So those are the numbers, and we, as I said, we aim to have 3/4 of the companies raising money, and most of their money being raised from now on.
Yeah, that's great. So 40 investors, 40 startups or companies, that's, I think, a very good balance to have. And these investors, where do they come from? Are they European, outside?
Basically, we have 3 types of investors, and of course, we expect that they invest actually have the capacity to invest across borders in Europe. Across borders, also, we are looking for companies from all over Europe. So the 3 types of investors we have is, of course, venture capital funds, the likes of Matterwave Ventures, MIG Capital from Germany. We have the likes from Ventec or Omnes from France, from Spain. We have Bullnet, we have from Poland, Vigo. Of course, we'll have Innovation Industries and a number of other players from the Netherlands. The second category, so we try to have those with an existing portfolio and an appetite to invest more. The second category is corporate players. Of course, corporations also can invest. They can also partner with companies, the likes of Logitech or Evonik. We also have a number of corporates outside, the likes of Sony or Huawei, Hitachi from Japan, Hamamatsu are going to attend.
Big names.
They are big names. Of course, we try to have always European-centric companies, corporates mostly. But we don't want to have Europe as an island or as a fortress. We believe that European corporates take the lead as well with European VCs. And the last category is, of course, sovereign investors. So we know Photon Delta is an active investor itself, and many companies in smart photonics, in a number of other companies. It has started its own fund. We try to work with the BOM, we try to work with InvestNL and their counterparts from the rest of Europe, so like the Kinderfonds from Germany, or IMEC from Belgium, or BPI France, or Enterprise Ireland from Ireland, etc. So and that gives the opportunity for companies to help put together a so-called syndicate or coalition of investors that is has the resources, has the capacity to bring the company forward in the long term. And sometimes the mix of investment may change, but generally it's a good thing for all investors and of course for the companies to have that mix of support, financial support.
Yeah. No. Fully agree on that. Hey, William, what about the program? What can you tell us anything about what people can expect that day? So we know about the mix, we know about where the investors come from, the startups. What can people expect from the Director of Photonics?
So first of all, as I said, we are delighted to be doing this part of the PIC Summit. So it will be during the PIC Summit, and so there's going to be a lot of synergies between the Director of Photonics and the PIC Summit. Secondly, we try to keep the program really business-to-business focused, meaning we won't have long explanations why photonics integrated circuits, because they can find that in the summit. And we are not trying to convert the converted. They are already converted. So what we do is basically a number of foresight sessions. We have, for example, also the president of Eindhoven University, which is going to be an opening keynote speaker. We'll have the director of the European Innovation Council, who has backed a lot of companies with the EIC, with subsidies, but also with the EIC fund. And we will have then actually elevator pitches of all the companies. We'll have reverse pitches of the investors. And then we will have company presentation sessions with Q&A with the active investors, and then basically one-to-one meetings with the companies, with the investors, between the investors sometimes as well. All that's more informal, and we will honor those companies that are rated most highly, because we ask the investors to sort of rate the companies after the Q&A. So out of the 40, we'll get the best quartiles of the best 10 companies to honor them in terms of their highest rating, which usually gives them an extra visibility and badge of honor to move forward with their investor relations.
All right, great. And I think there's also something like a networking dinner or something at the end of the day. Is that correct? Which maybe is even the best part of all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Of course, we are in Eindhoven, high quality of life, so at the Netherlands. So yes, we are, and I think this networking is going to be part of the PIC Summit, of course, as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. William, thank you very much. Maybe a last question before we move on to our next speaker. So let's say I'm an investor or I'm a startup looking for investments. How can I get access to the tech tour?
So for investors, they can sign up as a delegate if they do not wish to be actively engaged. If you really want to be doing a reverse pitch as well as being in the Q&A sessions with the companies, you need to be an active investor. We still welcome, of course, active investors, but you need to do the job if you need to get that visibility and credibility and recognition as part of the program. As a company, you can simply apply on the website. I think the links to the PIC Summit website. But just if you go on www.techtour.com and look for the Director of Photonics, it's very easy to apply. We just ask for a short profile with a few tags, and then basically the slide deck, that initial slide deck that you send to gauge interest from investors. Not, of course, any confidential information.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, thank you very much, William, for your time, and have a safe flight. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 7th and 8th of November.
Likewise, Jorn, thank you very much. Congrats on the initiative, and we look forward to bringing the investors and the startups in Eindhoven.
Alrighty, see you then. Take care. We've come to the end of this episode of Delta Dialogues. I would like to thank you very much for watching. If you have any input on the Delta Dialogues episodes and you wish to contribute in the form of a presentation or a discussion with me, you can submit your ideas through the Photon Delta website. Go to the events section, click on Delta Dialogues, and there you will have a form where you can submit your ideas. Also, if you have any feedback on the Delta Dialogues and how we can make this more interesting to you, you can also submit your ideas on a form on that same page. So, if you're interested in the PIC Summit Europe, don't forget to go to PICSummitEurope.com. And before we close this session, we are going to Irene Rompa, who will be the host of the PIC Summit Europe, and she is ready for us at the Evaluon in Eindhoven, there where the PIC Summit is taking place this year. Thank you very much for watching and see you next month.
Hi there, my name is Irene and I am incredibly honored to host the PIC Europe Summit again on November 7th and 8th, 2023 at the Evaluon in Eindhoven. Last year the theme was creating community, building collaboration and turning that collaboration into a European strategy for integrated photonics. This year, the theme will be ambition. How can Europe build the next tech giant while reducing its carbon footprint? Come and join me. No other event than PIC Summit Europe unites end users, scientists, investors, and major players from across the semiconductor industry in the same way. Will you join us on November 7th and 8th? Please go and buy your ticket. PICSummitEurope.com.